Well, I understand that our next guest is in position. I'm talking about Keith Wilson, the lawyer for the truckers who was in Ottawa with the truckers, negotiating with the police on their behalf, defending them, and really helped give them a professional approach, because I think they would have been eaten alive had they not had some representation. I'm talking about Keith Wilson, and he joins us now via Skype. Keith, what do you think of the election tonight? Did you think, I mean, we don't know the result yet, but I think we can assume the UCP is going to win, unless you disagree with that. How was the campaign? What did you make of it?
Well, it really became, as others have commented already, who do you want to be your premier, Danielle Smith or Rachel Notley? I hope, though, that people realize that, some of these policies that she's advocating are just not bad. They're impossible. We're starting to see that these 2035 goals are just simply impossible. You cannot produce the number of transformers. You can't produce the number of minerals. You can't get through the regulatory processes. We've got to do a six-fold increase in the amount of delivered electricity, while at the same time limiting fossil fuels.
You're talking about zero emissions. You're talking about a net zero idea.
That's right. So I think that if Notley wins, our course to that nightmare is going to accelerate. But I also think it's going to cause an awakening, that people are just going to say no. Like, look at the price. It's funny. When you go to the grocery store now, people window shop. They don't go in with a cart. They go in with a basket because they know they can't afford a cart. And they window shop. They like, and same thing at Costco in the meat counter. They go up. It's like the same look you do if you're going by a Maserati dealership or something. You have a look because you can't afford it. And this is all a byproduct of Trudeau and his crazy idealistic policies. And I think that was a strong message from Danielle and her team, that if you want more of that crazy, if you want more unaffordability, if you want more of the dollars that are going to education to be wasted on paying for the electricity at the school rather than a teacher's aide, you keep going down this course. So I'm hopeful that enough reasonable-minded Albertans voted, and that we're going to have a victory. And I hope it's a healthy one. It doesn't have to be a landslide, so that Danielle can deal with some of the difficult policies going forward.
But Danielle Smith herself uses language like net zero. Am I wrong?
She did once. And the what I've struggled with is, what does that mean? And unfortunately, I don't think you should use it, because what it means to the environmental community is that we completely phase out oil and gas, and we replace it with environmentally harmful and unrealistically attainable renewables. What I think Danielle was focusing on in the early days when she mentioned it, it was in the first leadership debate at Medicine Hat in the air hangar there that they had. And I think it's more the concept of, okay, we continue to produce our fossil fuels because of their value and their efficiency in terms of economic efficiency. But we find other ways to offset their impact by doing carbon capture recovery and things like that. So not an idea of eliminating fossil fuels. But for the green radicals, the cultists, they see net zero as getting rid of all fossil fuels, which will lead to an unbelievable amount of death, will cause people who are middle class to become poor, and will make the poor destitute. It's the most elitist, harmful, vicious type policy that any government's conceived of. And it's happening around the world, that governments around the world. So we're all competing for these resources to make these batteries, to make the transformers and the transmission lines. As we know, that the services connected to houses in the subdivisions in the cities can't handle converting so that they can have 2 electric vehicles, plus getting rid of the gas furnace to electric, plus getting rid of the gas house water tank to electricity. It is simply impossible to achieve this in the timeline. It will cause such economic devastation. So if Notley were to win tonight, I kind of gamed that out in my head. Let's do the other side of this. it's going to become so obvious to everyone, the price of food, the cost of living, and it's going to force us to really have a second look at this pie in the sky cult ideology, the ecologically extremists that have infiltrated our governments, that we can't let them have that kind of terror over the future of our children.
Let me bring in my colleagues, Adam Sos and Sheila Gunn-Reid. Go ahead, Sheila.
No, I was going to ask Keith about Danielle Smith's focus on public safety. The NDP have not spoken about this. And this is, I think, one of those things that resonates with people who live on Main Street in small towns. Affordability, jobs, and public safety. And the NDP didn't even address public safety whatsoever. I think it really hurt their campaign, particularly in the wake of the debate.
I totally agree. And, I haven't had to go downtown Edmonton as much as I used to pre-COVID, but oh my goodness. I was at an event, a legal event in downtown, and I left, and there was a woman walking by herself, and she started walking, because I kind of came out of this restaurant, and she started walking really close to me, and then stood kind of just behind me at the street corner. And when I started seeing all the crazy people around and drug addicts, yeah, I probably would have done the same if I was her too. It's not safe. And they want us to ride transit more, right? No, I'm not sending my kids on transit for some person cracked out to come up behind them and jab them with a knife. So she really missed the boat there. I thought it was an excellent idea when Danielle said, let's reinforce the city police with the sheriffs. I mean, they've really upped the training of the sheriffs. Those of us who drive and eventually, unfortunately get pulled over by them for speeding, I've seen the caliber of their training and the professionalism and their gear increase. And I thought, what a great idea. Yeah, completely tone deaf. And it's contrasts significantly to the words of the Prime Minister that drive me crazy, where he says, I'm going to keep Canadians safe, right? By controlling every aspect of your life, like they tried to do during COVID. This is different. This is risks to our normal safety and those of our loved ones brought about by idealistic, stupid drug policies and everything else that this government has done, and causing a generation to lose hope, something the truckers gave to all of us. So I thought it was a good call on her part.
Adam Sos, do you have a question for Keith Wilson about the election or even about the truckers?
You touched on it there, and if what we've seen, the estimations from the NDP about attendance at their events, they seem to say 3 times what the reality is. So many of their campaign policies, the odd time they do get down to actual policy, as you mentioned, it's absurd pipe dreams. They're talking about building 40 schools in no time flat. They're talking about hiring thousands of teachers when they can't even fill current teacher jobs. Who out there is believing these completely impossible promises?
Well, and I think, what drives someone not to vote the way I vote, which is for the UCP, and they're more afraid, I believe, that the disadvantaged are going to get left behind, that a conservative type person is too interested in corporations and profit seeking and doesn't care about the little guy. And I don't believe that to be true, but that's their mindset. They're petrified that they're going to lose access to free healthcare. And those things are so powerful for them that it drives them to despise those on the right and vote on the left. And of course, I'm clear in my mind with my life experiences and seeing different governments with different ideologies, which one helps people who are disadvantaged better. It's conservatives. Which one has policies that lead to better education outcomes? It's conservatives. So tonight will be interesting.
Hey, Keith, why do you think the results are coming out so slowly? Here we are 2 hours after polls close, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe my math is wrong on that. But we have such a small number. Is it because of that one district that Rocky Mountain House Sundry, that they said things would be delayed, and so that's caused some chain of events? Why? Let me give you the latest stat here. 290,000 votes cast. That's 10% of the votes. Alberta's only in one time zone. It's not that massive a place. Am I just being impatient, or are they going slow?
Well, let me tell you this. I thought about voting in the advance poll because they're all over the place, and I happened to be down at a shopping center and I saw one of them and I saw, wow, that's busy. But they were moving through fast. So that's interesting. And I said to my wife, let's go to the advance poll. Just get this out of the way, because no matter what, I'm voting. And she said, no, because I don't trust them because they're electronic, but the ones on election day are actually going to be manually counted. And I thought, oh, I wasn't aware of that. So I researched it and found that to be true from the Elections Alberta site. So today, my wife and I at 11:45 a.m. went to the gymnasium of a local high school, and there was 50 polls in there and over 100 polling staff, and there was 2 of us voting. I'd never seen anything like it. 2, my wife and I.
So
like normally there's 5 or 6 people lined up,
Mm-hmm.
or even out the door. I figured sometimes I've voted and I've had to wait 45 minutes to an hour, and we're lined up out the door onto the sidewalk, which I was perfectly prepared to do and mentally expecting.
Mm-hmm.
We walked in, there was no one else there. We voted, we left, and a few more people were coming in. So I don't know what to make of that. I've asked a number of people. They said that turnout was very light at their polling stations as well. So here we have the data should be available. So I'm expecting, and I would have thought we would have had it by now, at least the advance polls released rather, because we know if my number's right, wasn't it 750,000 people voted in the advance polls?
Yes,
Yeah, it was something like that.
750,000. Yeah, and we don't even have those numbers in yet.
Yeah. So yeah, it just makes one nervous. I was just on another stream and they asked me, do I have a concern about the electronic voting being hacked? And I said 2 things. I'll abbreviate it. One is, we're in such a weird time now with Chat GPT and everything else where people can, Ezra, someone could put your voice into Chat GPT, or better yet, put your voice into Chat GPT and phone your wife and say, oh, by the way, I need you to do an e-transfer to Keith Wilson for $12,000. And she says, okay. And I got to run, honey. I'm about to go on my show, right? And she's like, okay, that's weird. I guess I'll do it. That could happen. So in other words, we're in a different technological time. The second point is we all know that all computer systems can be hacked. So we just have to be so cautious. And I hope that the results are so clear tonight that we can have confidence in them, because we need that. We've all, through COVID and the betrayal that we've experienced from our institutions, whether it's the medical doctors, the public health, the police, the courts, our politicians, and on it goes, the news, the legacy news media. We need to have confidence that at least we can still have elections.
Yeah. Well, I hope there's a rational explanation for the delay, and I hope it's just not my own impatience, because it serves no one if faith in the democratic institutions are weakened. We can see that in the United States, and I don't want those same kind of fears to be in Canada. And generally, they've been different problems, but I don't think there's been widespread skepticism about the integrity of voting. Keith Wilson, King's Counsel, great to see you. Thanks very much for coming on the show tonight. And thanks as always for fighting for freedom with the truckers, as you did since the beginning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.